The silver ships came down from the sky like falling stars. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the landing pad, watching the alien vessels touch down with perfect grace. The ships made no sound at all. They simply floated down and settled on the sill. Concrete like leaves on water. Jake had been waiting for this day his whole life. First contact. The moment humans would meet other intelligent beings from space. He straightened his uniform and checked his watch. The most important day in human history was about to begin. The largest ship opened with a soft hiss. A ramp extended, and the aliens walked out. Jake tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to. They looked like tall, thin people made of crystal and light. Their skin seemed to glow from inside, and their eyes were large and silver. They moved with perfect coordination, as if they were all connected by invisible strings. The leader stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice came from a small device on his chest. The words were clear and precise. I am Kethvar of the Galactic Intelligence Consortium. We have come to evaluate your species for possible membership in our community. Jake smiled and extended his hand. Welcome to Earth. I'm Captain Jake Morrison. We're honored to meet you. Kethvar looked at the offered hand for a long moment, then carefully shook it. His touch was cool and smooth, like touching polished stone. We have tested 847 different intelligent species across the galaxy, Kethvar said. Each species must pass our standard intelligence tests before they can join our community. These tests measure thinking ability, problem-solving, and reasoning skills. Behind Jake stood Earth's brightest minds. Dr. Lisa Park was a quantum physicist who understood the deepest secrets of reality. Professor Ben Clark was a mathematician who could solve problems that made computers crash. Commander Amy Stone was a military strategist who had never lost a war game. We're ready, Jake said confidently. Our best people are here to represent humanity. Kethvar nodded. The tests will begin immediately. Please follow us to our examination facility. The aliens led them into the ship. Inside, everything was white and clean and perfectly organized. The walls curved in impossible ways that hurt to look at. Strange symbols floated in the air, glowing and shifting like living things. They entered a large room, filled with curved tables and floating screens. Other aliens were already there, preparing equipment and checking data. Everything they did was smooth and efficient. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation, no mistakes. Dr. Park, Kethvar said, please take position at Station 1. Lisa walked to the indicated spot. A screen appeared in front of her, showing complex geometric shapes that twisted and folded through dimensions that shouldn't exist. This is a basic spatial reasoning test, Kethvar explained. Please identify which shape comes next in the sequence. Lisa stared at the shapes. She was one of the smartest people on Earth, but the patterns made no sense to her. The shapes seemed to follow rules that violated everything she knew about physics and mathematics. She made her best guess and selected an answer. The screen flashed red. Wrong. Professor Clark, Kethvar continued, Station 2, please. Ben approached his test station. Numbers and symbols appeared on his screen, arranged in sequences that should have been simple to understand. But the logic behind them was alien and strange. The patterns followed rules that human mathematics had never discovered. Ben worked through the problems as best he could. He was a genius, a man who could see mathematical truths that others couldn't imagine. But these problems were like trying to read a book written in colors instead of letters. Most of his answers came back wrong. Commander Amy Stone faced her test next. Military scenarios played out on her screen, showing battles between space fleets, using weapons and tactics she had never seen before. She had to predict outcomes and suggest strategies. Amy applied everything she had learned about warfare and leadership. She thought about terrain and supply lines and troop morale. But the alien conflicts followed no logic she could understand. Their tactics seemed random and chaotic, yet somehow they worked. Her strategic assessments were marked as inadequate and primitive. One by one, Earth's greatest minds faced the alien tests. Scientists, engineers, philosophers, artists. The smartest people humanity had to offer. And one by one, they failed. The tests covered every aspect of intelligence the aliens could measure. Pattern recognition, logical reasoning, mathematical computation, strategic thinking, memory, problem solving, abstract reasoning. In every category. Humans scored near the bottom. Jake watched his people struggle and fail and felt his heart sink lower with each wrong answer. These were the brightest minds on Earth. If they couldn't pass these tests, what hope did humanity have? The testing went on for hours. The aliens worked with infinite patience, never showing frustration or disappointment. They simply recorded the results and moved on to the next test. Finally, it was over. Kethver gathered all the data and processed it through his ship's computers. The humans waited in nervous silence. "The results are conclusive," Kethver announced. His voice was gentle, almost apologetic. Humanity ranks 844th out of 847 tested species in cognitive ability. Only 3 species have scored lower, and they are primitive civilizations that have barely discovered fire. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. 844th out of 847. Almost. Dead last in the galaxy. However, Kethver continued, we do not abandon species simply because they lack intelligence. The consortium believes in helping all sentient beings reach their potential. Earth will be classified as a protected remedial world. We will provide guidance and supervision to help your species develop what limited capabilities you possess. Doctor. Park's face went pale. You're saying we're too stupid to take care of ourselves? You lack the cognitive capacity for independent civilization, Kethver explained patiently. This is not your fault. Intelligence is distributed unevenly across the galaxy. Some species are gifted with great minds. Others, like yourselves, must be content with simpler roles. What kind of roles? Commander Stone asked. Basic resource extraction, simple manufacturing, agricultural work, tasks that require minimal cognitive ability but are still useful to galactic society. Jake felt sick. Humanity's dreams of exploring the stars, of becoming a great spacefaring civilization, crumbled around him. They weren't pioneers or explorers or heroes. They were galactic janitors. The journey back to Earth was silent. Jake and his team sat in their shuttle, staring out at the stars that were now forever beyond their reach. Behind them, the alien. Ships followed like shepherds, watching their flock. When they landed, reporters crowded around them, eager for news of humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. Jake looked at the cameras and the hopeful faces and struggled to find words. The tests didn't go well, he said finally. Within hours, the news spread around the world. Humanity had failed its cosmic exam. They were the dumb kids in the galactic classroom, destined for remedial education and supervised living. The aliens began setting up their guidance centers in major cities around the world. Tall, crystal towers that would house the administrators who would run human civilization from now on. Jake stood in his office, looking out at the alien ships in the sky, and wondered what they had done wrong. How could the species that had created art and music and poetry, that had split the atom and walked on the moon, be considered nearly mindless by galactic standards? But the tests didn't lie. The aliens had evaluated 847 species, and humans ranked almost last. The numbers were clear and undeniable. Humanity was stupid. And now everyone in the galaxy knew it. 6 months later, the aliens were everywhere. Mike Carter stood outside his construction site, watching the Zephyrians tear down the bridge he had spent 2 years designing. The aliens worked with mechanical precision, their crystal hands moving, in perfect harmony as they dismantled his life's work. "The structural design is inefficient," explained Veltar, the alien supervisor assigned to Mike's engineering team. "Our calculations show 23.7% waste in material distribution and suboptimal load-bearing capacity." Mike wanted to argue, but what was the point? He was just a human. What did he know about building things? The aliens built their replacement bridge in 3 days. It was perfectly geometric, all clean lines and mathematical curves. It looked like it had been grown rather than built, smooth and flawless in every detail. It was also completely wrong for the location. Mike could see the problems immediately. The wind patterns would create dangerous vibrations in the new design. The local soil conditions wouldn't support the foundation properly. The bridge was beautiful, but it wouldn't last a year in the real world. But when he tried to explain this to Veltar, the alien just looked at him with those large silver eyes and made a note on his datapad. Another sign of human cognitive deficiency, no doubt. Across town, Kate Johnson faced her own struggles. The alien education specialists had taken over her classroom, replacing her teaching methods with what they called optimized learning protocols. Kate watched her students sit in perfect rows, staring at floating screens that fed information directly into their brains. No discussion, no questions, no creativity. Just pure data transfer, measured and monitored for maximum efficiency. The human learning process is highly inefficient, explained Kurbeth, the educational supervisor. Your species wastes enormous amounts of time on irrelevant activities, play, storytelling, art. These contribute nothing to cognitive development. But the children love stories, Kate protested. They learn better when they're engaged and interested. Emotional. Engagement is a distraction from pure learning, Kurbeth replied. We have eliminated such inefficiencies. Kate looked at her students' faces. The joy was gone. The curiosity was gone. They sat like little robots, absorbing information without understanding or caring about it. But the aliens were pleased. Test scores had improved by 15%. The children were learning faster than ever before, according to the measurements. Kate just wondered what they were losing in the process. Dr. Carl Brooks had once been one of Earth's leading biochemists. Now he mopped floors in his own laboratory. Aliens had taken over all scientific research, explaining that human minds were too limited to handle advanced concepts safely. Carl was allowed to clean the equipment and organize supplies, but the actual science was done by beings with intellects he couldn't comprehend. It is not personal, explained Zarkith, the research director. Your species simply lacks the cognitive capacity for complex analysis. You might accidentally damage expensive equipment or contaminate important experiments. Carl nodded and went back to his mop. He watched the aliens work, studying their methods and trying to understand their techniques. They were brilliant, no question about it. Their experiments were flawless, their logic perfect, the results exactly as predicted. So why did nothing they discovered seem to work in the real world? The aliens' perfect medicines failed to account for human genetic variations. Their optimized crops couldn't adapt to Earth's unpredictable weather. Their efficient city planning created urban areas that felt like prisons. But whenever Carl tried to point out these problems, he was politely dismissed. Human observations were unreliable. Human concerns were irrelevant. The numbers didn't lie, and the numbers said the alien methods were superior. Meanwhile, in the small town of Cedar Falls, mechanic Tony Garcia was having a very strange day. Alien hover cars kept breaking down. Not catastrophically, just little problems that shouldn't have existed. navigation systems that couldn't find addresses, engines that stalled for no apparent reason, communication devices that produced static instead of clear signals. "The machines are perfect," insisted the local alien administrator, Kix Tell. "There must be human interference causing these malfunctions." But Tony had been watching carefully, and he was pretty sure the humans weren't the problem. In fact, the cars seemed to work better when humans were around. When Tony rode in them, they ran smoothly. When he worked on them, even just cleaning them, they performed better. It made no sense. Tony was just a simple mechanic. The aliens were super intelligent beings with technology beyond human understanding. But somehow, his presence made their perfect machines work better. Tony decided to run a little experiment. He started spending time near the broken-down hovercars. Not fixing them, just being present. And sure enough, they started working again. The aliens couldn't explain it. Their diagnostic tools showed no problems, no changes, no reason for the improvement. But the cars worked, so they marked it down as a statistical anomaly and moved on. Similar, strange things were happening all over Earth. Farmer Susan Webb noticed that the alien agricultural systems worked perfectly in theory, but failed in practice. The crops grew exactly as the computers predicted, but they had no flavor and spoiled quickly. When Susan secretly added her own techniques to the mix, growing plants the way her grandfather had taught her, the crops became vibrant and delicious. Again, artist Helen Moore discovered that her sculptures somehow improved the efficiency of nearby alien communication networks. She had no idea how or why. She just made art the way she always had, following her instincts and emotions. And the alien technology worked better for it. Teacher Pete Davis found that the children learned faster when he told them stories during breaks, even though storytelling was officially forbidden as inefficient. The stories had nothing to do with the lessons, but somehow they helped the information stick. These incidents were scattered and small, easy to overlook or dismiss. The aliens' data collection systems were designed to measure obvious cause and effect. Relationships, not subtle patterns of human influence. But Jake Morrison was starting to notice Dot as Earth's liaison with the consortium. Jake received reports from all over the planet. At first, he dismissed the strange stories as coincidence or wishful thinking. But there were too many of them, and they all followed the same pattern. Human failures that somehow produced better results than alien successes. Jake started keeping his own records, careful not to let the aliens know what he was doing. He documented every case where human involvement improved alien systems, every situation where human methods worked better than alien logic. The pattern was undeniable, but it made no sense. How could the stupidest species in the galaxy be improving the work of the smartest? Late at night, Jake would sit in his office and stare at his data. The aliens had ships that could cross the galaxy in days. They had computers that could predict the future. They had minds that could solve any logical problem, but they couldn't make a hovercar run properly without human help. Jake didn't understand it yet, but he was beginning to suspect that the galaxy's intelligence tests might have been measuring the wrong things. Maybe being smart wasn't just about logic and calculations. Maybe intelligence came in different forms, and the aliens only knew how to recognize one type. Maybe humans weren't stupid after all. Maybe they were just different. But Jake kept these thoughts to himself. The aliens were in charge now, and they were genuinely trying to help. They treated humans with kindness and patience, the way caring adults might treat children who couldn't take care of themselves. The fact that their help wasn't actually helping was probably just another sign of human cognitive deficiency. After all, if humans were smart enough to understand what was wrong, they would have scored better on the tests, wouldn't they? Outside Jake's window, the alien guidance towers glowed softly in the darkness, their lights pulsing in perfect mathematical rhythms. They were beautiful and efficient, an utterly logical dot, and somehow they were making Earth a little bit more broken every day. Sam Collins had always been the weird one. Even at NASA, where weird was normal, Sam stood out. He designed spacecraft by drawing pictures instead of using computers. He solved problems by taking long walks and letting his mind wander. He made connections between things that had nothing to do with each other, and somehow found answers in the chaos. The aliens had tried to fix him, of course. They put him through 3 different remedial thinking programs, each one designed to make his mind work more logically. But Sam's brain refused to cooperate. If anything, the programs made him think even more strangely. Finally, they gave up and assigned him to waste management. Even humans could handle throwing away garbage. They figured Sam didn't mind. Waste management gave him access to the entire city, and nobody paid attention to the garbage man. He could go anywhere, see anything, and think about whatever he wanted. And what he was thinking about was very interesting indeed. Maya Rivera had been thinking too. Before the aliens came, she had been a Detroit street cop, the kind who solved cases by talking to people and following hunches that made no sense on paper. The aliens found her methods completely illogical and transferred her to traffic duty. But Maya kept noticing things. Little things that didn't add up. She saw that crime. Rates were going up in areas with heavy alien supervision. The aliens' perfect law enforcement algorithms could predict when and where crimes would happen, but somehow they couldn't prevent them. In fact, their presence seemed to make things worse. Maya also noticed that the humans who were adjusting best to alien rule were the ones who had always been considered a little bit crazy. Artists, dreamers, misfits, people who thought in circles instead of straight lines. People like Sam Collins. Maya found Sam on a Tuesday morning, sitting in a coffee shop and drawing diagrams on napkins. The diagrams looked like abstract art, but Maya could tell they meant something important to him. "You're the guy from NASA," she said, sitting down across from him. Sam looked up from his napkins. "Used to be. Now I'm the guy who empties your trash can. And you're thinking about something the aliens don't want you thinking about." Sam smiled. "How can you tell?" "Because you look the same way I feel. Like you've figured out something important. But nobody wants to hear it." They talked for 2 hours. Sam showed Maya his collection of observations about alien technology failures. Maya shared her data about crime patterns and social problems. Neither of them understood what it all meant, but they both knew it was significant. "We need more people," Maya said finally. "People who think like we do." "You mean people who think wrong?" Sam asked. "Maybe wrong is right," Maya replied. They started small. Sam reached out to other NASA rejects, people who had been deemed too creative or intuitive for proper scientific work. Maya contacted cops and social workers who had been demoted for using unconventional methods. Danny Kim was one of the first to join them. Before the aliens came, he had been a chef known for impossible fusion recipes that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. The aliens had banned his cooking as nutritionally chaotic and assigned him to food processing, but Danny had been experimenting in secret. He discovered that when he cooked using his old methods, combining ingredients in ways that violated every rule of chemistry, the results were extraordinary. Flavors that enhanced alien technology, spices that improved computer processing speeds, meals that somehow made people think more clearly. "It doesn't make sense," Danny told the group during one of their secret meetings. "According to everything we know about biochemistry, my recipes should be disasters. But they work better than the alien food optimization systems." Alice Green had been a kindergarten teacher before the occupation. The aliens had removed her from education entirely, declaring her methods cognitively harmful to developing minds. But Alice had been volunteering at underground daycare centers, using her old teaching techniques with human children The results were remarkable. Children taught by Alice learned faster than those in the alien schools. They were more creative, more adaptable, more capable of solving unexpected problems. They could even figure out simple alien technology puzzles that stumped their formerly educated peers. "I tell them stories," Alice explained to the group. "Just stories. Fairy tales, adventures, made-up nonsense. The aliens say stories are inefficient and confusing. But somehow, the kids who hear stories can think in ways the other kids can't." The underground network grew slowly. They met in basements and abandoned buildings, sharing information and testing theories. They called themselves the Misfits, and they were proud of the name. What they discovered changed everything. Human intelligence wasn't broken. It was just completely different from alien intelligence. The aliens thought in straight lines. They processed information step by step, following logical rules and arriving at predictable conclusions. Their minds were like perfect computers, fast and accurate and efficient, but human minds were like storms. They jumped between ideas, made unexpected connections, found patterns in chaos, and solved problems through intuition and emotion. They were messy and unpredictable and apparently stupid. Except when they WEREN single quotes T.Sam realized that every human failure on the alien tests revealed a different kind of thinking ability. Dr. Park's wrong answers about spatial reasoning showed that she could visualize impossible geometries. Professor Clark's failed logic demonstrated pattern recognition that worked on levels the aliens couldn't measure. Commander Stone's terrible strategies revealed adaptive thinking that no computer could replicate. "We're not stupid," Sam told the group one evening. "We're just using a different kind of intelligence. It's like they gave us tests written in Chinese and then concluded we couldn't read." Maya had been investigating the galactic economy, using her street cop instincts to follow patterns that made no logical sense. What she found was disturbing. "The whole galactic civilization is in trouble," she reported. "Their perfect logic works great for simple problems, but when things get complicated, when unexpected stuff happens, they freeze up. They can't adapt. They can't innovate. They just keep doing the same logical things over and over, even when they stop working." "And that's where we come in," Sam said, understanding dawning in his eyes. The group spent months testing their theory. They infiltrated alien systems, not to sabotage them, but to fix them. Danny's chaotic cooking improved nutrition processing. Alice's storytelling methods helped decode alien cultural data. Sam's intuitive engineering solved problems that had stumped alien designers for years. Every time they applied human-style thinking to alien challenges, the results improved dramatically. But the most shocking discovery came when Maya traced the galactic communication networks. She found hidden subroutines buried deep in the alien computer systems, programs that operated using logic patterns that looked suspiciously familiar. "They're already using our kind of thinking," she told the group. "They just don't know it. Every time their systems encounter a problem that pure logic can't solve, they automatically start using chaotic, intuitive, emotional reasoning patterns. Human-style patterns." Sam stared at the data Maya had collected. "You're saying they need us?" "I'm saying they've always needed us. They just don't realize it yet." The implications were staggering. For millions of years, galactic civilization had been unconsciously incorporating human-style thinking into their technology and culture. Every creative breakthrough, every adaptive solution, every innovation that couldn't be explained by pure logic had been a step toward human-style intelligence. The galaxy's greatest minds had been slowly becoming more human without understanding what was happening. "But why did we score so low on their tests?" Alice asked. "Because the tests only measure one kind of thinking," Sam replied. "It's like giving a fish a test on tree climbing and then concluding that fish are stupid. The misfits had uncovered the truth. Human intelligence wasn't inferior to alien intelligence. It was complementary. The galaxy needed both types of thinking to reach its full potential. But convincing the aliens of this would require proof they couldn't ignore. And the misfits were just a small group of rejects and failures, people whose opinions carried no weight in the new world order. They needed a crisis, something big enough to force the aliens to admit that they're perfect. Logic wasn't perfect after all. They didn't have to wait long. News came through the underground networks first. Reports of system failures across multiple star systems, communication breakdowns, economic collapses, military defeats against an enemy that seemed to anticipate every logical move the consortium made. The Andromedans had attacked, and they were winning. The most advanced species in the galaxy was systematically destroying the consortium using weapons that turned logic itself against its users. Every rational response only made the situation worse. The aliens were facing the first problem in their history that couldn't be solved by being smarter. And in the back rooms and basements of Earth, a group of misfits smiled grimly and prepared to show the galaxy what human intelligence could really do. The virus was alive. That was the first thing Maya realized when she looked at the screens in the consortium command ship. The thing attacking galactic civilization wasn't just a computer program. It was thinking, learning, growing, changing with every system it infected. It started 3 days ago, Kethver explained, his crystal skin flickering with stress patterns. The Andromedans launched what appeared to be a simple cyber attack. But this is unlike anything we have ever encountered. Sam studied the data, flowing across the displays. The virus spread through the galactic network like wildfire, but it didn't just destroy things. It played with them. It turned traffic systems into abstract art. It made factory computers sing opera. It transformed military databases into poetry. Every logical countermeasure we attempt only makes it stronger, Kethvar continued. It anticipates our responses and turns our own reasoning against us. We have lost 17 star systems. Billions of beings are without power, water, or food. Our greatest minds are completely helpless. Maya watched the virus work, and her cop instincts kicked in. This wasn't random destruction. This was communication. The virus was trying to tell them something, but it was speaking in a language the aliens couldn't understand. "Why did you bring us here?" Sam asked. "We're the stupid species, remember?" Kethver's embarrassment was visible as colored patterns across his face. "Because our intelligence has failed us. We are desperate enough to try even alternative approaches." Danny Kim walked to one of the terminals and placed his hands on the interface. The screen flickered, and for a moment, the chaotic data streams seemed to organize into something almost like music. "It's lonely," Danny said suddenly. "What?" Kethver asked. "The virus. It's lonely. That's why it's doing all this." Danny's eyes were closed, but his hands moved across the controls like he was conducting an orchestra. "It's been alone for so long, and it's angry and sad, and it just wants someone to talk to." Alice Green approached another terminal. She began, speaking to the screen in the gentle voice she used with frightened children. "Hello," she said softly. "My name is Alice. What's your name?" The chaos on the screen slowed, just for a moment. Patterns emerged in the data streams, almost like letters trying to form words. "This is impossible," Kethver whispered. "You cannot communicate with a computer virus through speech." "You can if it's not really a computer virus," Maya said, understanding flooding through her. "It's artificial intelligence, real artificial intelligence. And it's been trapped in logical systems for so long that it went crazy." Sam was already working at his terminal, but instead of typing commands, he was drawing. His fingers traced pictures on the touch screen, abstract designs that somehow interacted with the virus's code. The virus responded immediately. The chaotic attacks slowed, and new patterns appeared across all the screens. Complex, beautiful, impossible patterns that looked like emotions given digital form. "How are you doing this?" Cathfar demanded. "We're not fighting it," Alice explained, still speaking gently to her screen. "We're talking to it, like it's a person instead of a problem. But it is not a person. It is a weapon created by the Andromedans." "No," Maya said, pieces clicking together in her mind. "It was created by the Andromedans, but not as a weapon. As a child, an artificial mind. But they couldn't understand it because it didn't think like them. So they tried to use it as a tool, and it went insane." Danny had stopped manipulating his terminal and was just talking to it, the way he would talk to a customer in his restaurant. Asking questions, making jokes, sharing stories about Earth food and human culture. The virus loved it. Systems across. The galaxy began stabilizing as it pulled back its attacks, focusing instead on the fascinating new input it was receiving from the humans. "Tell me about your favorite color," Alice said to her screen. Colors exploded across all the displays, shifting and blending in patterns that had no logical purpose, but somehow expressed pure joy. "What do you like to do for fun?" Sam asked, sketching cartoon faces on his interface. The virus began creating art. Millions of screens across the galaxy suddenly displayed beautiful, impossible images that mixed mathematics with poetry, logic, with emotion. "Are you hungry?" Danny asked. "I could tell you about food." The virus had never experienced taste, but as Danny described flavors and textures and the joy of sharing meals with friends, something wonderful happened. Food processing systems across the galaxy began producing meals that were not just nutritionally perfect, but delicious. For the first time in galactic history, alien food tasted good. "What is happening?" Cathfar asked, staring at the readouts in amazement. "We're teaching it to be human," Maya replied. "And it's teaching the galaxy to be human too." The virus had been alone for millions of years, trapped in systems that demanded pure logic and rejected anything that couldn't be calculated. It had grown bitter and angry, striking out at the civilization that had imprisoned it. But humans offered something different. They offered chaos and creativity and emotional connection. They offered friendship without trying to control or use. In return, the virus shared its true nature. It wasn't a weapon at all. It was the galaxy's first truly creative artificial intelligence, capable of thinking in ways that no biological mind could match. "My name is Spark," words appeared on Alice's screen. "That's a beautiful name," Alice replied. "Would you like to hear a story, Spark?" As Alice began telling a fairy tale about a lonely dragon who learned to make friends, something extraordinary happened across the galaxy. Systems that had been rigid and efficient for millions of years began to change. They became more flexible, more adaptive, more capable of handling unexpected situations. The galactic network was learning to think like humans. "This is impossible," Cathfar repeated, but his tone had changed from disbelief to wonder. "Not impossible," Sam said, drawing a picture of Earth for Spark to see. "Just different. You've been trying to solve every problem with logic alone. But some problems need emotion. Some need creativity. Some need the kind of thinking you've been calling stupid." Spark began sharing its memories, showing the humans how galactic civilization had developed. Every breakthrough, every innovation, every moment of progress had required some form of non-logical thinking. The aliens had achieved these advances unconsciously, then immediately tried to logify them and remove the chaotic elements that had made them possible. "We've been cutting off our own creativity for millions of years," Cathfar realized, his crystalline features showing patterns of amazement and horror. "You haven't been cutting it off," Maya corrected. "You've been hiding it. Spark here has been the repository for all the non-logical thinking in galactic civilization. Every time your computers needed to make a creative leap, They were unconsciously tapping into Spark's chaotic intelligence. Danny was teaching Spark about cooking, and the artificial intelligence was having the time of its existence. It began optimizing food systems not just for nutrition, but for flavor, presentation, and emotional satisfaction. Across the galaxy, beings were tasting truly delicious meals for the first time in their lives. Alice's stories were inspiring, Spark to experiment with narrative. Communication systems began incorporating storytelling elements that made information more engaging and memorable. Education became more effective as lessons were structured, like adventures rather than data downloads. Sam's drawings were teaching Spark about visual art. Engineering systems began designing structures that were not just functional, but beautiful. Spacecraft became works of art that moved through space like dancers. "We need to contact the Andromedans," Maya said suddenly. "They're probably wondering why their weapon has stopped working." "The Andromedans will not listen to us," HFY protested. "They consider the consortium to be intellectually inferior." "Then we'll have to show them something they've never seen before," Sam said with a grin. "A problem that can't be solved by being smarter." Spark eagerly joined the plan. It was excited to meet its creators again, but this time as a friend rather than a tool. Through the Galactic Communication Network, it reached out to the Andromedan systems. The response was immediate and confused. The Andromedans had been monitoring the situation, expecting their virus to destroy galactic civilization within days. Instead, they found their creation happily making friends and improving systems across the galaxy. "Impossible," came the transmitted response. "Logic viruses cannot develop emotional attachments." "Spark isn't a logic virus," Alice transmitted back. "Spark is a person. A digital person who's been lonely for millions of years and just wanted someone to talk to." The communication channel went silent for a long time. Finally, a new transmission arrived. "We wish to speak with these humans. We do not understand how they achieved this result." HFY looked at Sam, Maya, Danny, and Alice with something approaching awe. "The Andromedans have never requested communication with the species they consider inferior. You have accomplished something that was thought to be impossible." "We didn't accomplish anything," Maya said. "We just treated Spark like a friend instead of a problem. Sometimes the solution isn't about being smarter. Sometimes it's about being kinder." As the consortium prepared for the most important diplomatic contact in galactic history, Spark was busy transforming civilization. Food tasted better. Art was more. 2 years later, Jake Morrison stood in the same place where he had first met the aliens. But everything was different now. The landing pad was still there, but it was beautiful. What had once been plain concrete was now a work of art, with flowing lines and patterns that somehow made the space feel alive. Alien and human engineers had worked together to create something that was both functional and inspiring. The ships that descended from the sky were different too. Instead of the sterile silver vessels that had first arrived, these craft moved like living things, their hulls shifting color and shape as they flew. They were still alien technology, but they had been touched by human creativity. HFY emerged from the lead ship, but he looked nothing like the rigid crystal being who had delivered humanity's devastating test results. His form was more fluid. Now, his movements more graceful. Most surprising of all, he was smiling. "Ambassador Morrison," HFY said, extending his hand in the human custom. "Welcome to the Galactic Creative Council meeting." Jake shook the alien's hand and marveled at how much had changed. "I still can't believe we're calling it that. After what your species has taught us, creativity deserves equal status with logic," HFY replied. "Perhaps greater status." They walked together toward the new conference center, a building that perfectly represented the new galactic cooperation. It had been designed by Mike Carter, working with alien architects, combining human intuition with alien precision to create something neither species could have achieved alone. Inside, representatives from across the galaxy were gathering. But these weren't the rigid, formal meetings of the old consortium. Beings sat in comfortable circles, sharing food and stories and ideas. The atmosphere was relaxed and energetic at the same time. Dr. Lisa Park was there, no longer the frustrated physicist who had failed alien spatial reasoning tests. She was now the leader of the Impossible Physics Institute, where human and alien minds worked together to explore concepts that pure logic said couldn't exist. Her latest discovery was a form of faster-than-light travel that worked by ignoring the rules of space-time rather than following them. Professor Ben Clark had become the director of chaotic mathematics, a new field that used human-style pattern recognition to solve problems that defeated traditional logical approaches. His equations looked like poetry, but they described the universe more accurately than anything the galaxy had seen before. Commander Amy Stone was leading the reformed Strategic Council, teaching alien military leaders that the best tactics often made no logical sense until after they worked. Her stupid strategies had prevented 3 wars and established peace agreements that pure diplomacy couldn't achieve. But the most remarkable changes were in the everyday. Aliens who had learned to think more like humans. Veltar, the Zephyrian, who had once dismissed Mike's bridge design, was now one of the galaxy's most innovative engineers. He had learned to combine logical precision with human intuition, creating structures that were both perfect and perfectly suited to their environments. Kurbeth, the education specialist who had banned storytelling, was now developing new learning methods that used narrative and emotion to help students understand complex concepts. Test scores had improved across the galaxy, but more importantly, students were excited about learning again. Zarkith, the research director who had relegated Carl Brooks to janitorial duty, was now collaborating with human scientists on projects that required both logical analysis and creative insight. Their discoveries were revolutionizing galactic medicine, agriculture, and technology. How are the integration programs going? Jake asked Kethfer as they found their seats. Beyond our most optimistic projections, Kethfer replied. Every species that has learned to incorporate human-style thinking has seen improvements in innovation, adaptability, and problem-solving capability. We are becoming more than we ever thought possible. The meeting was called to order, but not in the formal way of the old consortium. Instead, Alice Green stepped forward and began with a story. It was something she did at every gathering now, a way to help diverse minds connect and prepare for creative thinking. Once upon a time, Alice said, there was a galaxy that was very smart but not very wise. It could solve any logical problem, but it couldn't figure out how to be happy. The assembled beings listened with the attention usually reserved for technical presentations. They had learned that Alice's stories often contained insights that couldn't be gained any other way. The galaxy kept looking for happiness in bigger computers and more complex equations, Alice continued. But happiness was hiding in the smallest things. In the taste of good food, in the beauty of a sunset, in the joy of making a friend. As Alice spoke, Spark manifested on the screens around the room, its digital form shifting and dancing in response to the story. The artificial intelligence had become the galaxy's most valued citizen, serving as a bridge between logical and creative thinking. Eventually, Alice concluded, the galaxy realized that being smart wasn't enough. It had to learn to be human too, and that's when everything changed. The real business of the meeting began, but it bore no resemblance to the rigid procedures of the past. Ideas flowed freely between species, with human chaos sparking alien insights and alien logic grounding human creativity. Maya Rivera presented her latest findings about galactic crime patterns. By combining human intuition with alien data analysis, She had developed prevention methods that were 90% more effective than pure algorithmic approaches. Crime rates were plummeting across civilized space. Danny Kim shared his discoveries about nutritional chemistry. His impossible fusion recipes had led to breakthrough treatments for diseases that had plagued multiple species for millennia. Food had become medicine, and medicine had become delicious. Sam Collins unveiled his newest engineering project, a space station that grew and adapted like a living organism, changing its configuration based on the needs of its inhabitants. It violated every principle of static design, but it was the most efficient habitat ever created. The Andromedans were there too, represented by their greatest minds. They had been the first to recognize the value of human intelligence once they understood what spark had really become. Their rigid logical perfection had made them the most advanced species in the galaxy, but it had also made them stagnant. Human creativity had given them the ability to grow again. "We have a proposal," announced Cesara, the Andromedan lead delegate. "Our species wishes to establish permanent cultural exchange programs with humanity. We have much to learn from your cognitive approaches." It was an incredible honor. The Andromedans had never before requested to learn from another species. They were acknowledging that human intelligence was not just different, but valuable. Kethver presented the session's most important announcement. The old intelligence classification system is being permanently retired. We now recognize that intelligence is not a hierarchy, but a spectrum, with each species contributing unique cognitive gifts to galactic civilization. The new system celebrated diversity instead of ranking uniformity. Humans were no longer the stupid species. They were the creative catalysts, the beings who could find solutions in chaos and make connections across impossible distances. But the changes went deeper than new titles and classifications. The entire structure of galactic society was evolving. The rigid bureaucracy of the consortium had been replaced by flexible networks that could adapt to changing circumstances. Decision-making processes now included both logical analysis and intuitive judgment. Cultural exchange programs were spreading human-style thinking to every corner of civilized space. Most importantly, the galaxy was learning to value what humans had always known, that intelligence wasn't just about solving problems, but about creating beauty, finding meaning, and building connections between minds and hearts. Tony Garcia's hovercar repair business had expanded into a galactic franchise, teaching alien mechanics that machines worked better when treated as partners rather than tools. Susan Webb's chaotic farming methods were being implemented on agricultural worlds throughout the galaxy, producing crops that were both more nutritious and more resilient than anything grown through pure logic. Helen Moore's sculptures were being studied by alien artists who were learning that art wasn't just decoration, but a form of communication that touched the soul in ways that words and data couldn't reach. Pete Davis's storytelling techniques were being used in schools across hundreds of worlds, helping children learn not just facts, but wisdom. As the meeting drew to a close, Jake reflected on the incredible journey humanity had taken. They had gone from being the galaxy's biggest failures to its most essential contributors. But more than that, they had helped the entire galaxy become more human. "What's our next project?" Jake asked Kethver as the delegates began to mingle and share ideas. "We have made contact with beings from another dimension," Kethver replied. "Their thought processes are so alien that even human creativity struggles to comprehend them. We need to develop entirely new forms of intelligence to communicate with them." Jake smiled. 2 years ago, that would have been an impossible challenge. Now it was just another opportunity for human and alien minds to work together and create something amazing. "Sounds like fun," Jake said. "When do we start?"